Hi, I'm Gareth Evans. I'm a retired physics teacher, a pastor, a missionary, and itinerant for many years, traveling and speaking at youth conferences and pastors' conferences in many parts of the world. As I look back over my long life, I see so many stepping stones where God placed before me to direct me into walking into His will. I never saw them ahead of me, but I see many, many of them as I look back. And I'd like to share some of those stepping stones with you. Join me on this journey as I tell some of my stories. God bless you. One day while I was at Hazelglen Fellowship Church, in about the beginning of my third year there, I attended a concert in the city, Roger Whittaker concert. Roger Whittaker is a folk singer whom I enjoy very much. And the place was packed out. And so Roger said, any Scotsmen here? So he sang a Scottish band. Any Irish? He sang. Then he said, any Welshmen here? And a man across the aisle from me, one row in front of me, also waved his hand, plus many others. And Roger sang a Welsh song or Welsh ballad, and then he broke for an interview time. So during the interview, I went to this man, introduced myself. His name was Bill Williams, and we chatted for a little while during the interview, and he gave me his business card. He worked for a glazing company. So sometime later, I'm walking through Waterloo, and I see this glazing company, so I wonder if Bill's there, so I pop in, but he's not there. Well, that's the only contact I had. And several months later, I'm in the church, and at this time, the church has grown to nearly 100 people, which packed out the building. I told you in an earlier video how that I would stand with my back against the wall. I could actually touch the front row. And the piano was pushed into the cupboard at the side. The building was just a small building. And it had grown, and a number of people had been added to the church. When I came there, I was the oldest person but one. I had an old lady. She's the only one older than me in the entire congregation. And now people have grown from many different ages. And this elderly couple are sitting at the back of the church. So at the end of the service, she comes up to me, followed by him, and she said hi. And I welcomed her. And so, you don't recognize him? And I said, no. And he came up to me, shook my hand and said, Bill Williams. Oh, Bill, how lovely to see you. It turned out that Bill had a drinking problem and had a heart attack, and was so frightened with this that he'd given his life to Christ. His wife was a Christian already. And so he began to attend the Lutheran church with her. But he didn't like the formality of the liturgies. So rather than lose him to the church, she'd asked him where he'd like to go instead. So he said, well, let's go to that Welshman over at Hazelglen Church. So that's where they were there. He became a very great asset to the church, a great blessing to us. One day in the summertime, the windows are all open, the doors are all open, because Ontario summers are very humid and hot. And it was a very sticky place to be, and the church was packed out. And Bill comes up to me at the door, and he said, Pastor Gareth, he said, we're going to have to build. I said, I know, Bill. I've already been to the local Mennonite to see what it would cost us to build a Dutch barn, one of these quick erected things. We just can't afford it. There's no way, just still young people, mostly in the church. He said, well, we'll have to build it ourselves. I said, what do you know about building? He said, well, I am the secretary of the Grand Valley Construction Workers Union that stretches from Toronto all the way down to London, Ontario. And Kitchener is right in the middle. I am the secretary of the union. I thought, oh. I said, we have this land that belongs to the church, and I'm sure we'll have no problem getting permission from the denominational headquarters. But I said, we need to see what we can do. So I contacted our district superintendent and got the go-ahead to start planning for a building. But there were conditions. They were not underwritten in any way. We had to raise all the funds ourselves and build as the money came in. A couple of days later, Bill comes with a blueprint for a building, 50 by 80 feet, that would seat 350, 370 people, 2 stories, big gymnasium and kitchen facilities underneath, and a beautiful sanctuary on the top. Beautiful blueprint. I said, well, where did you get it? He said, a friend of mine drew it up free, gratis. Oh, I said, wonderful, thank you so much. It looked ideal for us. Next couple of days, a backhoe comes in, and Bill and I are there marking out the territory for the new church to be in a line with the current building. And the backhoe dug all the trenches for the footings to be laid in. When he finished the work, I don't know how deep it was, 5-6 feet below ground level, he dug this trench all the way out of these trenches. He said to Bill, so Bill, how are you building? And Bill said, well, 10 feet, 12 feet of cement block and then a wood frame building above it. And the backhoe driver said, well, where are you getting your blocks from? He said, well, we haven't looked yet. He said, are you aware that Beaver Lumber are going out of business at the end of the month? They'll be glad to get rid of their blocks at a reduced price. So Bill and I drove over to Beaver Lumber, and we knew how many blocks we wanted, so we offered him half the price, and cut a long story short, we got them for half the price, delivered to the church. Now Bill is going to teach us, the young fellows of the church, how to lay cement footings. So that's what we are doing. We lay all the cement footings. That's the next couple of weeks. And the spare time, all my young men, we mixed the cement and we wheelbarrowed it and laid the footings. These cement blocks are standing outside my building, and one day I got a telephone call. Gareth, this is John. I'd met John at the local primary school on an occasion when there was a meeting of parents because there was no facilities in our area at all for children to play. The school and our church, we don't have facilities there of any kind. Our area was bounded by a railway line, a major road, and the countryside, and we had a natural parish, but there was no other facilities there for young children or for teenagers. So John had been at that meeting, and I had been at the meeting. The only reason I was there was because my church was in this area. I didn't live in this area with the rest of the parents. This John telephones me. He said, John, he said, I saw a lot of cement blocks outside your building. Are you building? I said, yeah, we're going to build a new sanctuary, John. He said, will there be facilities there for youth of the area? I said, absolutely. I said, it'll be a big area underneath. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the young people being involved in. He said, who's building for you? I said, we build it ourselves. What do you know about building? He said. I said, nothing. But I said, we have a man who's leading us. He said, get all your young men there on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. I said, why? He said, don't ask questions, Gareth. Just get all your young men there, 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. Do you have the blueprint? I said, yeah. 8 o'clock, I get my men, 12, 15 young fellas, and up the road come a convoy of cars. And I'll jump all these men. And there's John. And he walks over to me and I said, what's this, John? He said, what my job is? I said, no. He said, I'm the secretary of the Masons Union. And these men are all unemployed Masons. I've asked them to come and build your church for you. What is that? Yeah. I said, how much do you want us to pay them? Nothing. He said, this is a gift to you. Those men came. They were skilled Masons. They built that church. That first Saturday, they built the bottom layer. They came in the next Saturday, built a complete finished work of the cement footing. It cost us nothing. My young fellas wheeled wheelbarrows, threw up blocks, and we had a fabulous time. Those men, we got the ladies to feed them. We had a fabulous time. It cost nothing. Now we've got to span this building with iron girders to support the main floor. 50 feet iron girders. Bill has the specs for these iron girders. He's telephoning around everywhere. Very expensive, several $1,000s to get these 2 girders. I'm in my office one day and the phone rings. Can I speak to Bill Williams, please? So I said, yeah, sure, and called Bill. He and I were tarring, waterproofing the outside of the building, big buckets of tar, and we came in. Mr. Williams, I understand you're looking for some I-beams. Yes, sir. He said, what dimensions do you need? What specs? And so Bill gave him the specs. The man said, we're calling from Toronto, 100 kilometers away. We've just discovered 2 discarded I-beams at the bottom of our lot in the undergrowth. They've got pieces of wood attached to them, they've got holes drilled through them, but I think they do your purpose very well. He said, what length do you need? Bill said, 50 feet. And I heard the voice on the phone say, 50 feet? Mr. Williams, how does 50 feet, quarter of an inch sound to you? We didn't have to cut them, nothing. Bill said, yes. So the next day, a huge truck came from Toronto with these 2 I-beams. And I don't know what it cost. It cost us a fraction. It didn't even cost us scrap value. And that included the transport. Now we got to get them up on the building. So Bill is telephoning around to companies with cranes to lift these things onto the building. Again, you're looking at many hundreds of dollars, transport of the crane, the hours of the work, the labor for the driver, etc. One day's a phone call, and I go quickly in. Speak to Bill Williams, please. I say, yes, Bill, for you. He comes in. Man from Hamilton, another 100 kilometers away. Mr. Williams, I understand you're looking for a crane to lift some I-beams onto a building. Yes, said Bill. He said, my crane driver has just called me from Kitchener. We've been building a government apartment blocks there. And he's finished the job, and he asked if he wanted to bring the crane home to Hamilton tonight or wait till tomorrow morning. And I remember that you need one. So where are you in Kitchener, Mr. Williams? Bill said, I can see your crane out of our windows 100 yards down the road from us. I can see your crane right now. Okay, said the man on the phone. I'll tell the driver to come up there and do the job for you. Bill said, well, how much he wants to pay him? Oh, he said, give him $100 for his pocket. I am not exaggerating. The crane came up the road 20 minutes later, and it's one of those cranes where the driver is so far away, I have to shout to get his attention. I go up a ramp on one side, Bill's on the other side of the building, at the square pillars where this beam is to sit on. I saw this crane lift the beam, it dropped it right down in front of me, and Bill shouts across, how far from the edge to the crane, to the beam? I said, about 6 inches. He said, I didn't ask you to guess, measure it. 4.5 inches. 1 inch. And I watched that beam come toward me 1 inch and then sit down on this thing. I've never seen such accuracy from a crane many yards away. But the beam took the other beam later on the back pillar. The whole job was finished in maybe half an hour. He climbs down from the crane and we give him $100 for his pocket. Miracles. God brought Bill Williams into the church for such a project as this. The building went down, we did all the construction work, we did so many things, so many miracles in that building. The building was totally paid for in 3 years. I'll tell you about that in another story.